Hey guys, I got a brand new toy to unbox for you today, and this time that honor goes to the new Apple TV 4K. Want to watch me unbox it and maybe get some of my initial impressions while we're at it? Hopefully you do. If so, stick around and I will do just that right after the break. Okay, so what's up everybody? I am Daniel Day and I am back yet again with another unboxing video for DDay Gaming. And as I mentioned in the intro, today we are going to be unboxing this fancy new Apple TV 4K right here. Now, for anybody that is curious, this is actually the larger 64GB version of the new Apple TV 4K. I think I paid around $199 US to get this version of the device. There is also a 32GB version that is available for, I think, around $20 cheaper, but honestly, at the end of the day, you double your storage for just $20 extra. Why in the world would you not get the big one, right? Those of you that have been following my channel for a while are probably already well aware of the fact that I am totally obsessed with 4K. I have 4K televisions, 4K Blu-ray players, 4K computer monitors, a 4K capable PlayStation 4 Pro, a couple of 4K Xbox One X's on the way, and a gaming PC that I specifically spec'd out so that I could play 4K video games. Since the Apple TV has served as my Plex media server playback device for quite a few generations now, I have been eagerly anticipating Apple finally releasing one of these things that was capable of outputting 4K. With all of that said, as you can probably imagine, I am super stoked to cut this thing open and actually finally get to play around with it. This thing has actually been at my house for about a week now, staring at me, really mocking me, but I wanted to make sure that I could unbox this thing at a time where I could film everything and bring you guys along for the journey. So at this point, I can't take it anymore. Let me get the lights and the camera moved around, grab a knife, and we will do this unboxing up proper. Okay, so before we actually cut this open, just wanted to mention very quickly that I am actually testing several of the advanced autofocus features on my DSLR out for the first time, so I am really hoping that this does not all end up a super blurry mess. If it does, my apologies in advance. Unfortunately, I've only got one of these things to unbox, so it is entirely possible that if that occurs, this footage is just totally going to be trash. So, all right, with that out of the way, let me uncross my fingers and let's take a look at the packaging. All right, so on the front here, we have got an actual picture of the Apple TV. Looks like that is actual size as well, which is very cool. On the top and on the bottom here, we've just got an Apple TV 4K little logo thingy right here. Nothing on the sides. And on the back here, we have just got, it looks like, some little badges about some of the services you can get, ESPN, iTunes, movies, Apple Music, Hulu, all that fun stuff, and 4K HDR. And again, this is the 64GB model. Little picture over here as well as some regulatory stickers. Hopefully, this is all in focus. All right, so that is kind of it. Very minimalist packaging. Let's grab the knife and see if we can find a way to cut this open, which is a little awkward with the camera on the tripod there, but we will give it a shot. Hopefully I don't cut off anything. Oh, well, you know what? Let's just get rid of the knife and tear this off, right? All right, so get the cellophane off of this. Satisfying little sound there pulling it off, and set that back down. There you go. So you got the Apple TV. It looks like there is the Siri remote, which looks a little bit different than last time. Yeah, little guy right there. Siri remote right here. And then what else we got? Got a little nook over here that appears to have a power cable in it. And looks like some paperwork and a lightning cable. All right, so let me go ahead and get this laid out a little more pretty on the desk, and then we will take a closer look at everything. Okay, so the thought just occurred to me that with all of this stuff here being black, doing this on a black desk was maybe not the best idea in the world. But hopefully you can kind of sort of make it out. The Apple TV is kind of camouflaged on the desk there. Went ahead and took all of the little plasticky cling wrap stuff off just so we could take a brief, quicker look at all of this stuff. So you got your standard little power cord here. There is no power supply, which is fantastic because it is built internal into the box itself. Okay, so this is the new Siri remote. It looks very, very similar to last year, except there is a bright white ring around the menu button right here, which also is kind of raised so you can feel it as well. And I suspect that that is to help with figuring out the right orientation of this thing in the dark, which has been a little bit of a nightmare for me since the 4th gen Apple TV came out last year. Now, the bottom of this is glass right here. All of the buttons are the same as last year, save for, again, the ring. This area up here, just in case you've never seen one of these, is a whole touch area up here. There is a microphone right above my thumb there, another microphone right there on the back so it can kind of block out ambient noise. And up here is an IR blaster so that it can talk to your television if it does not support HDMI CEC, along with a nice little Apple logo back here. And it actually just occurred to me that this Apple logo is not shiny, which is fantastic. I'll have to check on my other one to see if it was. I was always kind of worried about scraping it, and it seems as though that is not a problem here. Also, kind of the powder coating anodized aluminum feel on the back strikes me as a little bit different from last year. I suppose time will tell though, right? There's also a lightning port right here on the bottom to charge this thing, and thankfully Apple included a lightning cable in the box, which is just great. You can never have too many of these proprietary little charging cables. Now, outside of that, you have got your getting started guide, some regulatory information right here, and then, of course, your Apple stickers right here. I like to plaster these all over the place every time I get the opportunity. As far as the Apple TV itself is concerned, it looks basically identical to my unit from last year. There is a black piece of tape, it looks like, back here. Oh, okay, I see. That is actually covering up all of the ports to keep everything safe. Let's get that off of here right there. And on the back, you have got a power plug connection for that internal power supply, an HDMI port, and an Ethernet port right there, which is fantastic. Hopefully that is showing up on camera. The bottom of this looks just slightly different, almost identical. It's got a nice kind of textured feeling right here so that it does not slide around on your furniture. You can kind of see the fan vents through there. Hopefully the fan on this is as quiet as it was last year. And that honestly is about it. It looks basically identical to last year's model, which I guess is a good thing. It's a little black box that kind of blends in with your entertainment center. Now, there is one thing that I do want to mention here, and that is that the new Apple TV 4K actually does have the latest and greatest HDMI 2.0A port on it, which is what allows it to handle not only 4K, but 4K with HDR10 and Dolby Vision, which is fantastic. The thing is though, unless I'm missing a piece, it does not appear that there is an HDMI 2.0A cable actually included in the box. Strikes me like last year or maybe the year before, they did include the HDMI cable. There's not one in here, which seems a little bit odd. Luckily, I've got plenty laying around, but you should probably be aware of that if you don't have spares and you were planning on picking one of these up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get this hooked up to my television and play around with it a little bit, test it out, and I will be right back with some initial impressions. Okay, so hooked everything up to the television, set everything up, put it through its paces, did a whole bunch of testing. Heck, I even played some games on the Apple TV using the Siri remote as a kind of controller, just for good measure. First up, just wanted to mention that setup actually could not have been any simpler. Once I plugged the cables into the device, it actually turned itself on, turned my television on, and then actually changed it to the appropriate HDMI input all on its own, which was crazy. So then I was kind of greeted with a screen, clicked a couple of buttons, and then somewhere in there, it basically said, hey, do you want to set all this stuff up manually, or do you want to just hold your iPhone up close to the Apple TV and we'll just take care of the rest of the setup for you? And of course, that is the option that I chose, and just like magic, basically signed me into my iCloud account, did all sorts of stuff, all on its own. Once all of that was done, it basically put itself on the home screen, and then once again, as if through some sort of voodoo magic, it just started installing and downloading all of the applications that are actually on my 4th gen Apple TV in the bedroom, including Netflix and Hulu, and most importantly, Plex, which, as you can probably imagine from my earlier statements, was the first thing that I wanted to try. So booted that back up, playback worked just fine, didn't have any issues, and then I remembered reading somewhere that if you had purchased any movies through the iTunes movie store that now were available in 4K HDR, Apple would actually upgrade your 1080p licenses to the 4K versions free of charge. So hopped on over to that app, checked it out, actually did have a couple of movies that Apple upgraded for free, so I was able to play those back, and they look fantastic, let me tell you. Now, I am viewing all of this stuff on an HDR10 compatible Samsung 4K television, and everything just looked great. As I mentioned a minute ago, I also did check out a little bit of gaming. I was just a little bit curious if it could actually upscale or play any of the games that I own in 4K, and it appears that it does, which is just great. It still doesn't feel supernatural to me to play a lot of games with this thing as a controller, but it does work surprisingly well. And speaking of the controller, I don't know if this is just some sort of placebo effect or if Apple has actually made some improvements on the tracking for this thing, but clicking around the menu, moving my thumb around on the little touchpad on the front here was smoother than it is on my 4th gen Apple TV. Perhaps I've actually just messed up a setting on that one, I'm not sure. But the Surface actually has a slightly different tactile feel, or at least it seems that way, and everything just seems to move better, which I am quite happy about. Now, also wanted to mention that in practice, that little white ring around the menu button that I mentioned when we were unboxing this thing actually is very, very noticeable when you're using it. And that's great. It helps kind of anchor your thumb so that you have kind of a better idea, even in the dark, about where your thumb is on the actual remote at all times, which is kind of something that has driven me crazy in the past. So I'm very glad to see that Apple has made some strides in the right direction. Now, honestly, I would have preferred a complete redo of this remote. I don't really know what the perfect Apple TV clicker would be, but it just strikes me like while there is a whole lot of amazing technology packed into this thing, I just wish it was a little bit bigger. I do still find it odd that there's no HDMI cable included in the box. Like I said, I certainly have plenty of them laying around, but that's not going to be the case for everybody. But to Apple's credit, I actually checked the back of the box, and it does in fact say HDMI cable sold separately back here. So for folks that are picking this up in an Apple store or a Best Buy, hopefully they're going to read the fine print and be aware of that so that they don't have to make another trip out to the store. Having everything upscaled to 4K or playing in native 4K off of this device is just fantastic. It looks gorgeous. It is amazing how much power Apple has crammed into such a little box. But given that this thing actually runs the A10X Fusion chip that also powers my iPad Pro, and this thing does not have to power that ginormous Retina display, I suppose it's less voodoo magic and more really, really good engineering. Now, of course, all of that horsepower does in fact come at a cost. At $199, this guy is more expensive than a lot of the offerings from Google, Amazon, as well as Roku. But at the end of the day, it is in fact the most capable streaming device that is available to purchase today. And so if that's what you're looking for, I can't recommend this thing more based on my initial testing. Well, with one little catch, really, and that is that if you're a huge Amazon Prime user, that service is actually not available on this device today. It is in fact coming very, very soon. Apple and Amazon have announced that it will be on this device in a free update before the end of the year, and not only play the stuff back in 1080p, but actually support Amazon in 4K, which will be great. But it is not available today, so just be aware of that before you run to the store to pick one of these up. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, really two catches. The other one is that YouTube actually is not available for 4K playback on this device. So you totally got YouTube. You totally got YouTube in the same 1080p that Apple TVs have had forever, and it looks fantastic. And it is upscaled to 4K. However, because YouTube uses the VP9 codec for all of their videos, and that codec is not compatible with the Apple TV, that means that for the near future at least, there's no native 4K YouTube playback on this device.
Is that it? Yeah, just the two?
Yeah, okay, that's it. I promise. There's not a third one. Okay, well, I suppose that about does it for me, guys. Just wanted to say thanks for watching if you've made it this far in the video. Also wanted to give a special shout out to each and every one of my subscribers. You guys rock. And if you're watching this and you have not currently subscribed to my channel, I would love to encourage you to maybe check out some of my other videos. And if you like the type of content I produce, maybe subscribe. It's totally free for you. It helps me out quite a bit. Maybe share this video if you found it helpful, and of course, give it a thumbs up if you liked it. For any of you that would like to find me other places on the internet, all of my links are in the description box below, but I'll also see if I can work a little bit of video editing magic and have something pop up down here at the bottom of the screen with that information for you as well. All right, so once again, everybody, just wanted to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next one.